It's another episode of Feed the Trolls, and today we are going to talk about whatever the hell happened to Brazilian Counter-Strike, and specifically FURIA. I always try to do this thing in my head before we do the show where I have a timeline. So I'm like, we'll start with this question, then I can funnel them down here, and we can get to the main topic. And I keep looking at this with the new AWPer from Kazakhstan that everyone was shocked by. FalleN is now going to be a rifling IGL, and then YEKINDAR comes in, and I was like, where the hell do I even start? So what I'll do is I'll introduce
That's probably what they were saying when
Moses.
they made their roster.
You know, Moses joined us, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw this at you. What the hell is happening at FURIA, Moses?
I think it's awesome. I was just starting to get bored of the Counter-Strike scene. Like there wasn't enough things going on, and this pops up to save the day. It's great. I don't know. I think it's fun though. I think it's interesting. I think this is, I don't really like any of the moves, but I'm really kind of curious to see what happens with them. I think really, if you want to boil it down to at the end of the day, what I feel like these moves are is this is clearly to me an act of desperation. I think they feel locked in terms of not being able to go get any of the younger Brazilian talent. I don't even know if that's been a goal of theirs. But I feel like they don't really have any great choices on where to go because they've made so many moves to bring in ostensibly the most talented player at that point in time, the most talented player for the role that they need, the most talented player in terms of potential, who they've now dropped in Skullz. So they've taken this in a couple different routes, and I feel like they feel locked in and like they don't really have any great answers and great ideas of what to do to get better from here. Because it's clear this project is stuck in the mud. So I don't know. It's just crazy.
Is this like a situation of we'll just throw a bunch of shit at a wall, Lauren, and hope that something here sticks?
Notoriously, shit doesn't stick on walls.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The problem is the implication here, like Moses actually alluded to, but he didn't directly say it, is there's a thing I've said, I've referenced it on social media many times, which is over the years, when I've tried to doing the thing, which luckily is one thing you get the luxury of doing if you're known in the scene, which is you try to actually just make the moves you want to happen behind the scenes. So you do stuff like spoiler, I'll just say, I do that shit where I'll just like, when Payne got good like a year ago, I just messaged Big as Hero, like, why are you still on this team, mate? Surely this team's offering you squads. Like, why don't you go and play for it? You know, of course I do, mate. That's who I am, Moses. That's who I am. Like, also, by the way, understand that, guys. If you're one of those teams like Saw when they have one good run ever, I'm not the guy like, I hope this whole team can make it. I message the one good player, like, get out of there, bro. This is your chance. They're all bloody losers. Like, so anyway, that's just who I am. I'm just the agent of disruption.
The agent of chaos.
Yeah. So anyway, when I've messaged some of the people, you know, the sort of the fucking insanies of the world, the people I think should be, you know, whoever the best Brazilian team is, and cause KSCERATO is the best Brazilian player, my mission is like, get them all to play together so we have a Brazilian super team. The two-part bomber is this. One, whenever I have messaged any other people who aren't in FURIA but who are top Brazilian players, none of them will explicitly say why. I have heard other stories, but they all basically give the implication of like, I won't join FURIA the org though. Like, I don't know what it is. Yeah. I don't know if it's the implication of like, they keep you in too long a contract or it's hard to get out. I don't know what I know specifically what each person's bothered about, but there's like a weird sentiment in the Brazilian scene of like, you just won't see top players go there. It's why, if you think about it, the last time actually an up-and-coming player did join was Skullz, and that was via that really weird circuitous route where he went to Liquid first, and then they sort of got a discount on his buyout or something. Like, as far as I can tell, unfortunately, the last few years, they don't actually recruit the top players from the. If you go look at Payne and MIB, they don't get the top players. And then the other thing that's a bummer as well, and this is just the obvious thing if you've been following this team for the last 3 years, is we'd all sort of finally got through the copium of like, okay, I guess KSCERATO's never going to leave a Brazilian team. So, okay, we agree we're going to give you what's called the Tabson pass, which is you're not actually trying to be in the best CS team. You're doing some sort of
You're doing the noble mission.
You're doing some sort of like, I'm going to save my people in the game, which, by the way, in its own cool way, you know, some last of the Mohican shit. I fuck with it. But then the problem becomes, just like Tabson, don't then do like Tabson does every 6 months of like, oh, we're bringing in someone non-German to big and going to speak English. It's like, now what are we doing here? What is this? The whole thing is, I was willing to accept it had to be a German team with you in it. So the same thing with KSCERATO. I was okay with the idea, like I say, okay, KSCERATO won't go elsewhere. He wants to stay in a Brazilian team, probably FURIA. We have to get everyone good to him, and then we're just recruiting random Kazakhstani players and checks notes YEKINDAR. Like, what are we doing? So that's my problem. Those two things I think are not minor issues. One is, why won't anyone good join FURIA? This is weird, by the way. It's like in Europe, the equivalent to this is, why does every good player want to leave G2? G2's supposed to be like the best esports org in the world, but in CS, no fucker will go there, apparently. So there's that, and then also this thing of like, I just don't get the project, because as far as I can tell, like, There's a world where maybe Yekindar could learn Portuguese. There's no way this team is supposed to speak Portuguese. Presumably it's going to be in English.
No, it's got to be in English.
Yeah, so what are we doing?
English.
I just don't get what the premise of the team is at this point, you know.
Well,
okay,
especially, yeah.
I was just going to say, before we get into more FURIA, I need to know, because this is now bugging me, when you message all these players and tell them to leave their teams, what are their responses to you, Thorin?
Well, here's the thing. Most of the time, they're just polite. And they're like,
you're right, Duncan. I am playing with a bunch of fucking morons. I should get out of this team.
Sadly, they're not as toxic as I wish, which is like, yeah, don't worry, I know they're all shit, but I'll be out there soon, King. You know, sadly, they're all just like, oh, thanks for the message. I appreciate the positivity. I hope one day I will also play in a good team. Like, whatever, bro. Yeah, shut the fuck up.
And the back of their heads are like, just please don't piss him off. Please don't piss off Duncan on Twitter. Please don't piss off Duncan on Twitter.
And low key, part of them is a bit shocked that I just send them like a nice message back, like, oh, you are not flaming me. Yeah, well, you know, whatever. Cameras are on now, mate. There's no point. You know?
That is everyone's feeling when they see that notification that they have a DM from Thorin. I know when the first time you DM me, I was like, oh, fuck, what about
here we go.
Yeah. And then I opened it. I was like, okay, I'm fine. Don't say anything that'll piss him off, you know? Okay, there we go. Okay, let's get back into this conversation now. Moses, is there an issue in Brazil? Because I've heard these rumors that basically all these orgs buy these players, they make these ridiculous contracts where the buyout clauses are so insane that basically the players are stuck. And that's kind of the situation we now have, where it's impossible to get good players because they're just priced out of the market.
Yeah, I mean, without having very many like inside details to it, that's basically been word on the street out of the Brazilian scene, and the Brazilians have been saying that for I mean, like a decade now. It feels like they've always been crazy, and there's been so little movement within those teams. And I mean, it's funny. I think it was like a month ago I was on Duncan, one of your other shows, and one of my bad points was the Brazilian scene and its lack of mobility and its lack of ability to put together a good team. I know Yanko agrees with me a ton, and his whole thing is like, out of all the Brazilian teams, you could probably make one very good team and like one you know, good team that could be very good. So like there should be some teams that can be made, but I don't want to put it all onto like some kind of crazy contract situation in Immobile. I actually look at FURIA kind of like a Brazilian form of Astralis, where I think they missed some critical windows over the past few years of when they could have gone and picked up talent when they were at their peak and probably had the best bargaining position to attract people to them. And I think they missed those windows, much like how Astralis did with like Copenhagen Flames back in the day when they were kind of popping off, and then the heroic rise, and they didn't want to get any of those guys, obviously, and they came back to it later. But Astralis equally missed some windows to let them get the younger Danish talent filtering through their program or their team. And I think FURIA missed that boat as well. And yeah, maybe some of it sure was insane buyouts they didn't want to mess with, but I guarantee there's plenty of missed opportunities they had to grab some players to bring into the team. So yeah, now I just think they're in a shit place where, yeah, you have the horrible contract situation out of Brazil and out of that region. You have very little ability to attract talented players to your team because you're not playing particularly well. You're in this habit of recycling old talent. And I think it's not a very attractive place for people in Brazil to go, to be quite frank. And that, I think, touches on with what Duncan said. Like, why would you want to go there? Even if you're one of like the best riflers in Brazil right now, do you really think you're going to be given priority over KSCERATO? Like, if you're one of the other guys coming in, do you really think you're going to be given things over Yuri, who's been in that team forever? Those two guys have played around for so long. So, I mean, I think if you're one of the most talented players in Brazil, yeah, why would you want to go to FURIA? You're not going to be the top dog there. You're not going to have the same opportunities. You're going to have to learn an entirely new role. And the team itself is in flux right now. So there's not a whole lot of positives.
Is it not a crazy thing to do? You've got 2 events that you're going to play in before the major. You make this giant change. You bring in a young Orpa that's pretty much unproven in tier 1. We don't know how he's going to cope. You're going to make the entire team now communicate in English. You bring in Yekindar, who hasn't been on form for
he's got his own baggage, I think. He's got his own baggage he's bringing.
Comes with all of that. And then you're going to take your IGL and put him in a rifling role as opposed to being the primary Orpa. I mean, that is a hell of a lot of changes to make 2 months before the biggest event of your season.
I think 2 things. I think one, the most important thing to know how you're going to view this change and in what like kind of lens we want to start with is what kind of expectations did you have of the FURIA roster going into the major to begin with?
Right.
Because for me, I did not have any expectations. Probably get past stage 1. Stage 2 feels like a likely place they would have gone out. Maybe they get into stage 3. Maybe they're battling for that, but they're not really a chance to qualify for the actual playoffs.
Yeah, put it that way.
Yeah. So I mean, in that context, I'm like, fuck it. Like, you roll the dice, make these changes. I actually think a couple of, I think they're kind of cool in a way. I don't know enough about the Opper to like have a real opinion on whether he's going to be good or not, but yeah, get a young stud Opper coming out of a region that has produced the most incredible Oppers we've seen in the past 5 years, and see if you find a diamond in the rough. Sure, grab YEKINDAR, who we know obviously had those incredible struggles, and I don't necessarily expect him to be amazing, but the payoff if he comes in and he's got some of his game back as just a space taker and a creator, which is critical in CS2 right now. We see so many important players in that position. So yeah, roll the dice and see if lightning's going to strike twice for you. I think the hardest change they're going to have to get over is FalleN IGLing without the AWP. And we just had a nice case study on it of Cadian doing it for Astralis. And you realize that these career Oppers understand the game through the lens of an Opper and how the AWP is supposed to be positioned and how the AWP is supposed to scale and how the AWP is supposed to be used. And when you all of a sudden make them a rifler and put them in different positions in different spots and different responsibilities, it is going to be very difficult to view the game through that lens for an IGL who's been doing it as an Opper for well over a decade to a high degree. Cadian really struggled with it both individually and as a caller, and I think that is the most difficult of all the changes that FURIA have made for them to get over, is going to be FalleN's IGLing as a rifler now instead of an AWP.
Sure.
What do you think about that specific change, Thorin?
The problem with that move to me is I actually do. I think the Cadian comparison is a really good one as well, because I also think if you look at how both of them played, the thing that they both relied on at the very end, because neither of them were considered like elite AWPers in CS2, they both relied on like, yeah, but I win a few clutches with it. So like, I actually do think, just like with Cadian, it wasn't just that his calling was bad. It's that when you took him off the AWP, he had like no impact in the game. He was just a bad player on SMGs at that point in time. So similarly, I actually do worry about this for FalleN, because one of the last things FalleN had left was if you put him in like a 1v1 clutch, especially if it's against like a less experienced player. Actually, that's a rare case in the game currently. He can still have an edge. So that's going to be gone. As far as I can tell, he'll just be another player who probably won't have much impact. So this actually also, for me, not only puts more pressure on like what is FalleN's impact, but it's going to put loads more pressure actually on the other players brought in, because now they actually have to be really good. Before, like, he could add a little bit in and it was like you were hoping the rest were good and he just like did some veteran moves, you know. It does make me wonder, because actually one thing people don't talk about with FURIA is, look, I was on the same train Yanko was. I looked at a lot of the things Art did and was like, this guy's a fucking idiot. He also was doing a lot of stupid comments in interviews that came off really poorly. But I'll tell you what, the one thing I do kind of get now when I look back in hindsight is, mate, he kind of was the soul of their team. Like, he was the person who was kind of the driving force of their squad. As soon as he sort of like not only was removed as IGL, but gradually like phased out of the team, they haven't really had that. Like, that's the problem in their squad. They still have KSCERATO and Yuri.
The identity doesn't feel like it's there.
It doesn't. It's not like if you think of that FURIA that was in that like major final or whatever, like that was fucking semi-final of the major.
Yeah,
that was the era of like the zenith of that team. They've never looked anything close to that since then. And when they brought FalleN in, look, he's at the very end of his career. He's trying to do like the one last run. So that's another thing as well to me is like, what's weird about this move is I almost feel like this is just throwing shit at the wall. It's like we're going to pick up a couple of like a really random young player that might be good, a really random sort of older player who no one even knows if they're good anymore. And to me, it's almost like if this doesn't work, you just go, it's just a full international roster now. And then who even knows? Like, is FalleN going to be in the team in 6 months? I don't even know. Like, I feel like this is like, you're not even going to be FURIA after this. That's what's such a weird move. I don't hate it though much. I'm with you. It had also gotten to the point that was really old, where it was like, the question for FURIA is, do they come last place in the main event or like second to last? Like, it wasn't sexy anymore. They weren't even doing like the odd miracle run to a playoffs, except that one Rio, basically. That was it.
I think what's weird about it is that I feel like it raises more questions of like what comes next after the major. Like, are you just like throwing this in there to try and see if you can have like some kind of hit like a miracle honeymoon run and like crack into the playoffs for no good reason, and maybe you're just happy with that? Or is this kind of like, let's see how this major goes and maybe these are pieces for the future? Like, are we going to start transitioning to something more international? Or
by the way, maybe you can remember, I tried Googling this, but I couldn't find it. There was some time, I think it was early this year, where like, I think it was like the CEO or something, FURIA, didn't he make a comment like that? Like, the future might be to be international or something. It was some weird comment. It was done in a vague manner though, right?
I remember talking about, I think it was towards the end of last year, maybe, because it was like, he came out and he was like, and it was just like a crazy thing to say. He was like, I don't think you can win a major with only like Brazilian talent. Along those lines, something along those lines. And they'd mentioned they were like searching for an international coach that came in. Or that they were trying to find, and I don't think that ever really panned out. So yeah, I don't know. It's that's why I'm kind of like, that opens more questions for the future, because it's like, if you take like the last 6 months of things we've seen out of the FURIA camp, it's like it doesn't feel like there's like a really coherent long-term vision at the moment for where this team is supposed to go, which is interesting. But I mean, I also found it kind of funny because like there's that Cadian comparison, but then also it's kind of like you guys have already at one point tried to pick up an Opper into your team who didn't speak Portuguese and force you guys to speak English, and it was a fucking disaster. And like, you know, it was when they picked up Junior and brought him into the team. And it was just like, and even that was like a head scratcher. Like Junior was doing great in the online era and the NA teams and everything. But like the conversation when he left was like, he even came out and said like, I never had any idea what was going on. Like he was just like, I was in this team we were trying to communicate in English, but they always just defaulted back to Portuguese. And I had no fucking clue what was happening. And I was just playing the game. It's like, so now we're like, oh yeah, that was kind of fun. Let's go back to it. Let's try it again. So this FURIA, I don't know. It's like, this feels like it's just like a desperation for the major. I don't feel like it has any place being in like a long-term strategy unless they're just going international, which
it's the way you just know they were doing that thing as well, where when you know the guy doesn't speak your language, you always forget you can pick up the vibe though.
Yeah.
So I bet when they were defaulting to Portuguese it was also like Carvalho Junior, and then he was looking over like, is everything okay? Like, yeah, we'll just talk about dinner later. They're like, brilliant. All right.
Carvalho, I've heard that word before. What does that word mean?
I thought it was weird though. I thought it was weird though, because I think one of the comments was that YEKINDAR's also coming in to like provide support for molodoy. And I was like, okay, this is weird. Okay. So we're going to have like these two players off on this side.
Okay, that's an angle.
Communicating in Russian or whatever, and then you all speak in English, but then you talk in Portuguese, and now
why are we? So we're not just bringing the melody guy in to be a talented opera. He's got to support YEKINDAR with him, like an actual service dog or something. Like, hey, but YEKINDAR, I need this to be not anxious. Like, what? What is this?
YEKINDAR, we don't need your A game, but we do need you to translate for the opera.
Yeah. I gotta find out where I saw that, but I do remember reading it, being like, what the fuck is going on? But do you think that this is also potentially a move? Because I'm just reading into all the interviews where FalleN was saying when they signed molodoy and announced that he was coming in, he was like, I'm stepping back to rifling because this is going to create space in the team, and if I potentially want to move on to something else down the line, it's going to create that space. I suppose in his mind it's like, cool, now I move into rifling IGL, we have a star AWPA, I retire after the major. It's a lot easier to fill that IGL role than what it was currently. Maybe, I mean, he teases to it every few months, but maybe this is FalleN retiring.
I mean, I know people want him to become the coach or something, right, Boys? Isn't that what people want the next transition to be, so he can still have like influence on the team or something?
It seems like a logical transition if you wanted to step away from playing, if that's the next move you want to go. But I don't know. I don't see it for FalleN. I don't necessarily know if I'd want him to coach. But that's a personal thing. So for me, I'm like, I think about it because when I coach him,
from someone who did indeed coach FalleN, just put that out there.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be the next question.
He'd be great at it, but I think here's my thing with the FalleN angle is I would imagine if he steps away from playing, it's like, I want more time. I want to do the things I haven't done for a decade, like family building. Yes. If you step into coaching, you're on the same fucking schedule.
You're still on the same exact trip.
Yeah. Exactly. So you've just traded playing for watching more demos, and it's like I don't know. I don't think that'd be something that would make sense for where I think his retirement is coming from. Looming retirement. I had something. I was going to say something. Oh, here's the problem. And I love FalleN. I love FalleN a lot. I think he's a great player.
That excites me that he's giving me a disclaimer of I love FalleN.
Positivity.
Hit me with the bot, Moses. Come on. I'm ready.
He is one of the best media interview players out there in the world. And it's really hard for me to comment on his statement in that interview when in mid-March, right before I think Bucharest began, his interview was, I believe, where's the headline? I do believe we have the team to be able to do bigger things. Yeah. And then a week later, these changes came in. So it's like, I don't know what to take from that. I'm not saying he was lying. Maybe he didn't know they were coming. I don't know how deep they were in the conversation.
It's a bit too fast, Moses. Many different.
Maybe he was talking about the new team. Duncan did it. He did it. Oh no.
No, but
who knows?
It is the interview you give when you are very well PR trained. You say all the right things, but it's just like, I can't put really a whole lot of stock in that because like that's just the way the relationship works at this point. I just know your media training is so good that your interview answers don't mean anything to me.
Yeah. By the way, I agree. That is the way the relationship works. He lies to us. We know he's lying.
And he lies very well.
Is he good at doing it? And boy, do we love
polishes up that turd.
Exactly. It's a toxic relationship. It's awesome.
I still love FalleN. That's it.
I do too. I do too.
That's his superpower. That's his super. By the way, I've actually told this story many times before, Sam. Even at events where I am literally talking mad shit about him on the event, he is so charismatic. He will always get me to come and have a drink with him, and he even wins me over. Because in real life, he actually does have that like superpower aura. That just like if you just sit next to him, like you just like every 5 minutes you sat next to him, you like him 1% more. It's mad. He's actually really charismatic. It is nuts. It is nuts.
I feel like there's very few superstar Counter-Strike players that have that, but he is right up there at the top. Like he just knows how to win you over. Even if you are upset with him for lying, you're just like, oh, it's fine, it's FalleN. Like it's okay. That's just first pass.
I'll say this as a positive note as well for FalleN. I truly do think that he's making this decision and he's taking the sacrifice because he thinks it is the best decision for the team. He is that kind of a player, and I think his rifling and his AK work I think is levels above Cadian. So I don't expect it to be quite the drop off that we saw with Cadian and Astralis. But it's still going to be a struggle. It's still going to be a difficulty. But I mean, that's also the point of bringing in this like young talent, right? Like at some point you're just saying, I imagine they're just like, we just want some stud, like 19-year-old Kazakhstani opera to come in and get us like 2 frags for no good reason. Like go hunt down a kill round. You're going to have some freedom. YEKINDAR, like go try and make your plays. We're going to pair you up with Yuri or KSCERATO. They're going to trade you off. Go crazy. I think they just want fragging power in this team. I think they were tired of trying to like have like the X's and O's conversation with chelo, with Skullz, trying to get these guys activated. They're like, fuck it, let's just bring in firepower and just see what happens.
By the way, I will say as well, if you are thinking of past FURIA iterations and the role art played, YEKINDAR is about the closest archetype you could ever get to that exact style of play. Like, if anything, they know how to play with a player like that, assuming he's going to be good.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point as well. Like just the crazy aggression and sometimes just going to push it on his own. Yeah. I mean, I was never as down on YEKINDAR as most people were. I always expected a bounce back. It was clear towards the end it wasn't going to happen, and he had to make the move. But I think there's still some left in the tank. And if this time away was good for him and he got to reset a little bit, this could be surprisingly like we could just be looking at this FURIA team and be like, oh, that's kind of like if everything works the way it's supposed to, there could be some cool things. I still don't think they're like a shoe-in for stage 3, but they could do some cool things in stage 2, I think.
Let's talk about the Counter-Strike now, though. If you take a look at who they got rid of, Chelo and Skullz, I mean, from a playing perspective, do you think that both of those benchings were justified, Thorin?
The tough thing for me is it's the different context to both. The Skullz one I'm really surprised by. I actually thought he counted for himself fairly well in FURIA, and the story I heard about like the transfers he had, it sounds like that actually sort of made sense. Like there's not many players, like I said, that are up-and-coming talents that they'd be able to get from Brazil into their team. So they got him. I actually figured he would be one of the players they'd build around. To me, it's like you take him, KSCERATO, you see what's going on with Yuri, and then there you sort of safe players and you just mix the other ones. The Chelo one I get in the sense that like I don't think in FURIA he performed very well, but I've always said this is one that takes me and Maui always had. I always felt like the way he joined FURIA was a mistake though, because he did that thing where you join where everyone else has the bigger name and you get pushed into sort of the shit roles, like the drop-esque roles. Whereas if you ever saw Chelo when he played with FalleN in Imperial, he was way better. He was like their best player, mate. He actually looked like he had like a bit of game. So I actually thought in FURIA they never really gave him like his space. So for the player they had him as there, yeah, you probably remove him. But I actually thought they could have potentially used him in different roles or given him more of like a responsibility or something. So that one's a bit harder for me. The Skullz one I am shocked by. I don't really get that one. It makes me wonder if there's like some sort of a personality thing or they didn't like vibe or something. I don't think in the server he did anything wrong for me.
It's the one that kind of points you towards they have to be thinking of going international after the major. Right. Like if you're going to stray Brazilian and Portuguese, like you'd want to keep Skullz as a young prospective talent who's got potential. Now I'll say this: I think Skullz has maybe I don't know where he's going to go from here, obviously in his career, but I think he's got 2 big issues if he wants to remain competing or if he wants to find a way to get back to the tier 1 level. I think one is going to be his level of communication inside the server. I think he's a pretty reserved guy, and I bet that translates inside the server where he's not really the instigator of ideas. He's not the one coming up with solutions inside the server and in different scenarios. He's kind of playing along by what other people are calling. That's an area he's got to work on. And then I would just imagine with how good his mechanics and his aim are, and you can tell when you watch the game, I think he struggles with decision making, which unfortunately to me usually points towards is the player watching the demos, doing the work, doing
Right.
the research, sitting down with the more experienced players, figuring out how the game is played, coming up with ideas, coming up with new, fresh ways of approaching situations. And I feel like I didn't see a lot of that development, you know, from his start in Liquid to now his end in Furia, which I think is probably also part of the reason. And then the third one is just what I mentioned earlier, which is if you join this team, like, you have to know that KSCERATO is untouchable. I think Yuri within the organization's mind is probably pretty damn close to that point as well, even if from the outside it feels like he shouldn't be. And then obviously FalleN is probably going to be untouchable as well. So, I mean, whether the chelo and Skullz were the right ones to remove, I don't know. But I don't think there's any other option when you look at the way Furia kind of handles that core, right? That is the three they were always going to hold on to, which leaves them high and dry. And also why it's hard to get people to want to come there, because then you have like the NIP situation where it's just like the replacement is always going to be on rotation. And once you get that reputation as an organization, it's really hard to find good people to fill those gaps. So Furia's in a little bit of a trouble in that sense as well. But yeah, I don't know. Skullz, I don't know what he does. I think in my head, I'm like, go back to Biggie Zera, baby. Like that's the guy who had you click.
Oh, there's plenty of teams he could play for. Yeah,
that's the guy who had you firing to begin with. Get back to Biggie Zera and tell him to bring you back up, and we'll see what happens.
What do we think of Molodoy? I mean, how much do we actually even know, right? He's been playing in tier 2, super aggressive.
And the thing is, I will say that Amcal team that he played for was like, here's the problem. They weren't actually like a good team. They were more one where if they went to an RMR, like they are dangerous for like an opponent, you know, you could, if you get the wrong team and overlook them, you could maybe lose to them. I never thought they were actually that good though. But then again, the problem is right now, one of the hardest scenes to read is like CIS up and coming talent that are in like random mixes that play a million tier 2 online games. Like sometimes those teams are just complete demons, like some of the fucking bait guys, etc. But sometimes they're also just whatever, like just online players. So he's not pretty sweet. He's not someone, Sam, that I had on my like crazy radar, or was like one of the ones where, you know, the difference is like, for example, when that Icy guy joined Cloud9, that guy actually, I did see him play before. I thought, oh, he has a little something. This is actually for me a complete shot in the dark. Like, I have no idea how this move comes about. That really, to me, looks like some like Mad Libs generator, like Molodoy of Amcal joins Furia. Like what? Like that doesn't even, like the AI's broken again. It's someone fixed the rules. Like that doesn't even make sense as a move to me. I still don't get it now.
It's got very like ultimate Liquid vibes, right? I mean, it was the same sort of approach.
Sure.
Listen, there's no need to shoot strays at Liquid. They're doing okay now, Sam. We've gone past that phase, you know.
They're looking good again. We're fine. We're back. We're back, baby.
It's a bit like that, though, because by the way, you are sort of hoping for the same thing. Like, if he's as good as Ultimate, then it's an all right move. It's not a bad gamble.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the only way. I don't know anything about him, to be honest with you. I've heard that he's been on the radars of some teams, but I don't know much about him. I didn't watch Amcal spoilers from January 2025 to April 2025. I didn't see a single Amcal game. So I haven't watched him play. I've just heard that he's really young and talented and he's got potential, and I think that's exactly what this is. The ultimate comparison is probably a decent one in the sense of just picking up someone that nobody really knows much about. But I think it's just a shot in the dark to see if they can create something when clearly what they were going to go into it with was going to accomplish nothing. I think that Fur interview was pretty fucking damning as well. Like if you're on the Furia team, when Fur drops that statement, you're just like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that one at all. But so mostly because it was true, Sam. It hurts because it's true.
It was true. It hurts you because it was true. What do we think about
I also love, by the way, that if people don't know, in the English-speaking community, Fur almost never speaks English, so we just see him as some like chill guy who just played the game. But in Brazil, he is a demon. The second this guy gets in front of a mic, it's like he has like truth serum in his veins all day. He just says everything he thinks. Like, he has said some really crazy shit on stream before. Because I know what you mean. Basically, what most referred to was like, he made it sound like it's being in prison to be in Furia.
He's like, this is probably why I'm not on a team anymore, because if I was on that one, I would have cut people already. It's just like, holy shit.
I love how just like, so it's just too honest, isn't he? I know, it's too honest, mate.
I kind of wish more players would be like that, though, to be honest. Like, I think that would be kind of fun.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You say that, but we all wish it until it goes too far. Like, spoiler, I also wish, Sam, as a journalist, that every CEO of large esports orgs is just really transparent and gives all their thoughts and working out. Then I listen to the G2 guy do it and I go, bro, even I'm like, get the mic away from this guy. He's doing damage to himself. Like, you know, sometimes he can be too transparent. You know what I mean?
I know. Sometimes you don't even realize that you're just punching yourself in the dick repeatedly.
Yeah. Fair points. Fair points. Okay, moving right along, right? So we've obviously spoken about molodoy. We don't know what to expect there. I'm presuming though, if you're gonna learn under like some of the best, it is so long as they can communicate with you in English to a degree. We know FalleN can, but like it is a good move. You are playing with some really experienced players that can help develop you a little bit, Moses.
Yeah, and Counter-Strike's a pretty universal language as well. I think they can get over a lot of it in the game. And I think, depending on how this roster goes with the lead up to the major, I don't think it's like enough time to really have to dive into too crazy of nitty-gritty details outside of it where the language barrier would truly be an issue. So, and obviously with the amount these players grind these days, I think they'll be able to pick it up. But yeah, I don't know. It's just really, it's just out of the dark. Like, honestly, my feelings on this, like, I don't really have any deep thoughts about how this is going to work or operate, because I actually do just feel like this is a Hail Mary. This is just bring them in because it was going to be terrible. So let's rock and roll and see what we got. I'm just more curious about the long term, if it's going to be a full blown switch or if this is temporary. I don't know. It's one of those moves that, like, I don't like it. I like it at the same time. Like, I'm here for the car crash. I'm here for the chaos. I'm here for the whatever it can turn into. But like, I don't really have a whole lot of positives outside of like hopes and dreams and wishy-washy bullshit, to be honest.
Put it this way, if I did this as my point on Steak and Banter, this would just be, it wouldn't be bad or good, it would be ugly. Because I'm with you, Moses. Like, this actual roster probably won't do anything. But if it actually does mean this is a stepping stone to get an international roster that now KSCERATO can be in, because it's still FURIA, but then it's got, like, in the end, let's say like a couple of up-and-coming European players take those spots, then that could be really exciting, because then essentially we have backdoored our way in the FURIA just being on an international team. I think that would be kind of cool. So I could see if you make these players better or they fit, it could be really good, because they're obviously clearly also, by the way, like we're saying about who they've removed, they're doing the liquid thing of like, we still want to have the America spot though, but we're going to be international. Like they're keeping the cynical three players. So they picked the right three. Those are the right three to do it with.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Yuri's got to be towards the, like, when's the last time you felt like Yuri was having a stretch where he was like turning games around and like putting a good shift in for FURIA? Like, I don't know. Like that one's kind of, I'm at the
problem
point
with that one is though, they've never explained this, because I noticed no one in interviews ever comments on like his form. Like it doesn't seem like in their org they ever acknowledged that his level went down, or like to me, I'm with you. I think to me, KSCERATO's just good, so he has to be like the guy you cater to. But after that, bizarrely, in the same way as Liquid caters to Twists, Yuri's in the NAF spot where he can also then just fuck around, because he's the other made man, as it were. And
he flies under the radar as well.
Never even consider removing this guy, no matter how he plays, mate. He's just permanently in this team if he wants to.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think for this FURIA roster, I think the FalleN thing is the most intriguing to me, because like also when you think about it, pretty big implication in terms of his career. Like if this swap to like rifling IGL works and he wants to stick with it, it might buy him another year. But
it could give you extra time for sure.
If the next like 3-4 months are a disaster in this, it could just be
the end. You retire.
Yeah, it could just be done from there. And I think it's interesting right now. One of the great fascinations I have with Counter-Strike at the moment is like so much conversation around roles, and it kind of annoys me to a certain extent, but I almost think it's a part of me is like trying to find an angle to the conversation that's interesting. And one of it is maybe we're just seeing the priority of where the importance of like your stronger players, which roles they have to be in. I think there's a lot of conversation. I think it was NPL I saw gave in it, which it's just kind of come out of nowhere, where he's just basically said it's like the era of the playmaking IGL, like back to the IGL who leads from the front, who's kind of the guy who sees the opening and initiates it and has his teammates follow him up, and he's able to make that decision a lot quicker. So what kind of IGL with the rifle is FalleN going to try and be? Is he going to be like far back, like as like an AWPer typically would be, or is he in his head going to try and make that switch and be a more playmaking, space-taking rifler IGL, like like your Kixins, like your Apexes are doing? Is that going to be the style he's going to go for?
By the way, what I love is that NPL did say that, you're right, at the bait IGL, but he himself was describing himself. So it's like he just goes, the era of the fragging IGL has arrived. And the other reason it's not as great, Moses, is because the era of it's crazy. I love it. But the other part that doesn't quite hit as well anymore, Moses, is I'm almost certain from memory, if you go back to when he first said that, I think he actually used as an example, like Twists from Liquid. I'm not even sure. I think he actually, which listen, that example hasn't aged so well.
No.
But aside from that, listen, you're doing a great job, NPL. I get why you're bragging about this. I get it's all good. It's all good.
So if I was on another take called Hot Take Point Made, my hot take would be that I actually think that FalleN has told FURIA that he wants to retire after this major. And this is a stopgap. I think it's a stopgap roster to get them through the major. and then potentially not bail out right in the beginning, and then he
Okay.
steps down after the major. But the stopgap thing is, and the reason I'm saying that as well is because also the Yekinda thing is he's been announced as a stand-in till the
That's
major.
true. Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's not a permanent signing. He's just there as a stand-in. I wonder if this is just it is a stopgap. When you buy like quite an up and coming Orpa, but who doesn't have a lot on his back, maybe he pops off. You can sell him for shit tons of money if you really want. Maybe he doesn't pop off. You can offload him to a tier 2 team anyway. So he's not a financial burden per se. I actually say that they would have bought him out of his contract, so they did spend
Who
money
knows
on
at this
him.
point in time, though? You never know.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, it can go the other way sometimes in Eastern Europe. Sometimes they have big buyouts, but sometimes they're on, like, incredibly low salaries. And this is the key thing. Because this wasn't a super famous player, I imagine it was quite reasonable. In fact, my assumption when I saw the name is this must have been, like, the only reasonable buyout. Maybe this was, like, the 50K buyout that wasn't crazy, you know, like, because it's not, like, surely this was on your list. This was, like, the 10th name or something. It wasn't at the top, surely.
Well, I would imagine too, you'd want to keep as much financial flexibility as possible going into the major. Like that's the other side of these moves is like, it's a stopgap, and I'm with you out of desperation, but also it frees yourself up to make some moves, especially if you can find a way to trade or unload Skullz before the major or during the major. Same with Chelo, and it just gives you some flexibility to make some moves elsewhere. I just don't know where it's going to be. Like, are you going international? If the offer impresses you, are you going to keep molodoy around and you're going to build some people around and bring in some more international pieces? Or are you going to try and go back to Portuguese after this? Hope some of the Brazilian teams struggle or fail and you can pick up some pieces that you're looking for. They'd obviously, I have to imagine they'd be targeting Insani going into this major. Seems like a name that you'd want to have if you're FURIA. So I don't know. They've done a decent job of like finding some players where you can get that strike of lightning and something cool and giving themselves some flexibility. I just don't know where it goes. I don't know what the strategy is for them. It's that one. That's the one that's hard to see.
Isn't it going to be one hell of a shakeup after the major? If you start thinking about how many players are just stand-ins, like there's teams are not wanting to commit.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Liquid hasn't committed to their IGL. He is a stand-in. Yekinda is a stand-in. Oh, really?
Well, that one's fun because that's a good angle for it. And then I think the other angle is equally important is Shuhei hasn't committed to Liquid yet.
Oh, on both sides.
Like nobody really speaks about that one, but like if you're Liquid, it makes sense. Like after the Cadian experiment went so horribly, let's dip our toes in the water with these IGLs before we bring them in. But then I think if you're Shuhei, you're also like, bro, I'm like the hottest IGL that's not on a team right now. It's not on a lineup, and the major's about to come. Like, if you're Shuhei, you have to feel like you're going to have some opportunities when the major ends. So I don't commit to Liquid quite yet. I make sure that they're putting themselves in a position to where I want to be there. And I mean, maybe he enjoys it after just the 2 months, but I think Shuhei as well as a really big incentive to keep distance from committing to Liquid at the moment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, think of all the teams that might want him. G2s, who knows at this point in time. Yeah, there might be loads.
The post-major shakeup, this one, I think this one...
By the way, that's actually why I think for Yekindar, though, this is a very smart move. I don't think there's any other like vaguely big-name team was going to give him a crack. By the way, it might even be perfect for him to just be a standard. If he does well, it doesn't have to be this team. He could get in a European team again.
If he has a great major, then he can go elsewhere for sure.
Yeah, why not?
But I think this, I don't know if it will be, but I think there's potential for this post Austin major off season and like roster change, rostermania as we always call it. Yeah. I think it has potential to be really exciting because I think I really feel like Counter-Strike is about to gear up into like the arms race where every team is
especially because of Vitality. If Vitality actually crushes this final, it's going to be played tomorroor. And every team's surely going to do a roster move. You know what I mean?
And now Falcons with Monacy and Nico getting there, they're probably the next best team in terms of firepower.
But with you, I expect this roster mania might be the craziest.
And then CSGO felt like getting the right people for the right roles for how you wanted to play the game tactically and strategically and smart players. And now that we've had like a year of CS2, it feels like every team is like, get talent, bring all the skill we possibly can into this roster. That's the thing that matters most is like, screw the tactics, put them on the back burner for a little bit. They're important, but we want the firepower more than anything else. And with Vitality and Falcons looking the way that they look and just, I mean, Falcons steamrolling Bows this morning was mental.
Oh, it's nuts in it.
But you've got to be like, I think everyone's going to be chasing firepower, which means big names on the move, which means talented players on the move, which could be in a really exciting offseason.
I think it like ties into what you're saying though for Yekinda. Like he didn't have that good run in Liquid. His form never really hit VP levels.
He had a really good start.
Break.
Oh, he did, sure.
Yeah, and then it
It
just
cratered
kind of
quickly.
yeah, and he looked. I mean, he just looked so sad at the end of his
Yeah.
liquid time. I felt like he just looked like he was in this deep dark hole. Which, fair enough, he did have to listen to Katie and lots,
Okay,
but
true.
it's rough, right? And now he's taking a break. Maybe this is his opportunity because, like you said, Thorin, he goes into the major, he pops off, he shows that insane firepower. Then suddenly there's a bunch of teams in Europe who are knocking at the door trying to get him. I mean, that is pretty much the situation you want to get yourself into, right?
I also just refuse to believe that when someone has the mechanical ability this guy had like 3 years ago, you don't just wake up and like that disappeared. Like you didn't get like in a car crash and have nerve damage or something. Like to me, that's something mental, something psychologically happened to this guy. And then obviously he also did one of the most classic ways to kill your game ever in CS, which is become the in-game leader. Like there are so many even much greater players have done that and never returned to be the star in the same way again. So my issue is he doesn't have to be Virtus Pro YEKINDAR from like 3 years ago. Just give me something like halfway between what he was in TL at the end and Virtus Pro. Like essentially on this team, by the way, you don't have to be the best. You've got KSCERATO, you've already got players. If you could just essentially contribute and do something in your role, because I do feel like he is in a like pretty sweet. I also agree. If you look at how he was in Liquid, he just looked emo as fuck at the end, didn't he? He also did, quite frankly, people reference this, but it's not a minor issue. Just like Simple, he also quite literally had like quite a mildly disturbing like weight gain where they look quite unhealthy as well with these teams. So like when people do that, it also makes me wonder, like, is something going on outside the game where whatever's going on in your career is like bringing you down or you're in a bad place or something? Because as much as I like, look, I've bantered back and forth with him, but I think it's sad when a talent like that just withers completely. Like he's so young as well. Like I'm going to look it up now. What is he now? Like 23 or something?
Yeah,
he's 25 years old. That's still young.
Yeah. That's
like,
so very young.
You still have at least a couple of years where you could still be a top player. So I still think he could be reclaimed. It's a bit like players like Config and Kirby. When you actually have talent, that doesn't just go away. Something else has happened there, you know.
That's I'm with you, because that's why I stayed on the YEKINDAR train for so long, was like seeing him and talking to him at events. You could tell like from like the just outside of VP early days in Team Liquid, YEKINDAR was like not there. Like the bravado, the cockiness that he always had in interviews.
Really self-assured guy.
Self-assured, yeah.
Absolutely.
And then like towards the end, you could just tell much more reserved, much more like stayed within himself,
Right.
didn't have that same kind of energy projecting around him. And I don't know if there was something, like a significant moment in his life that occurred outside of the game, or if it was just like the constant weight of underperformance just dragging him down, the stress of IGLing, whatever it might have been, watching his game get ruined, not able to find it back. I think he just got into a spiral. So that's why, like, I'm hoping this time away was good for him in a number of different ways, but I hope it gave him a chance to kind of reset that mentality, because I'm with you. I think there's still talent in YEKINDAR, and if that can pop off, and if he can find a good event, yeah, maybe you play yourself up back onto another team after the major. Maybe you find yourself, maybe you convince FURIA that going international and you're an important piece to keep around. Cool. I don't know, but yeah, I'd like to see YEKINDAR still have some life at his career. Would be cool. Would be good.
I would like to see KSCERATO just have more. I feel like he's really been like short done by in his career. Like I would like to see him at least try
Wait, Sam. Short done by?
He's just so good, and then he just stayed at FURIA. Like this is what I don't understand, when you've had all these opportunities to really just fucking rise to the top level.
That's what I mean. He's not short done by. He's chosen.
Oh, he chose to do it. Yeah. It's self-inflicted.
Self-inflicted.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe, but I still want to see talent shine. Like there's this. I'm soft and squishy like that. Like I still want to see you have. I feel like talent should be rewarded, right? And also hard work should be rewarded. And he's been in this team losing. That's hard work, and he's stuck it out. So like in that regard, I would like to see something.
Here's what's a bummer, though. I can tell you, though, and if you ever look at interviews with him, you'll get this immediately. One of the downsides of KSCERATO is he's actually, funny enough, Moses, you'll fuck with this. He's actually like quite old school in how he is. He reminds me of players like Forest, etc., where they don't even concern themselves with what the roster is or what the agenda. They just kind of play their game, mate. Their whole thing's like, I play CS, this is my team. I sit down, I do my. By the way, one thing I'll give KSCERATO mad props for, it doesn't matter how bad FURIA ever got. It doesn't seem like it phases him.
He hasn't had much of a drop
he still frags out the same way. Yeah. So in a weird way, I fuck with that on some level, but I know what you mean. I do actually hate it when, like, famously, because he's like tried to battle the narratives. Nico's done this himself. He's had all these years where he's been like, whoa, no, I didn't have any control over the roster. And I want to be like, bro, start having control. Like, come on. Like, what, you don't want to be stuck in this situation for years where you're like the guy pushing the boulder up the hill and then it can never get up to the top and it rolls back down again. Because I know what you mean. Like, part of me, it does kill me to see that, like, if this is his career arc, like the height of his whole career was 3 years ago, he made the semis of a major. Like, That's not enough. This guy for real could have been. I always say the saddest thing about this guy's career is if you ever look at the eye test, he could have been right up there with KSCERATO, like one of the greatest players ever from Brazil, with like a crazy trophy cabinet and HLTV top X. By the way, he's never going to get a top 5 or whatever rankings. He's never in the team to do it, is he? So that part I'm with you, but I also agree with Moses. He's not only like done this, he'll with a fucking smile on his face sign that like $1 million contract. Like he doesn't seem to agree with us, unfortunately. He likes this shit.
Well, I mean, I have some, I know, but I have some sympathy for it. It's got to be, I mean, it's hard, I imagine, especially as a foreign language, like not speaking English at the start of your career. I think it's been getting better and it's pretty decent now, but that's intimidating, leaving the Portuguese team, leaving the Brazilian team. Yeah. That's a hard call, but yeah, he's had the opportunities to do it. But I think also I
can't lie, we did all make fun of him at the time, but you know what? We were asking him to join that team that was Cadian and Twists, and you know what? You might have dodged the bullet on that one. You know what, KSCERATO? All of us is
we don't talk about
talk great, did it? You know?
No, it wouldn't have been the best time to leave. Wouldn't it? You made a good call on that one.
Do sell that one. Exactly. Wasn't great for everyone, was it?
No, it didn't. Some people came out a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I think out though. I was going to say, imagine he comes out years later and goes, they did make that offer, and I just looked at that and was like, that is a shit show waiting to happen.
That would be hilarious. If he did that, we saw that. I would like appreciate it almost. I know he goes, listen, I'm playing in Furia. We can't win anyway. I'm not joining that shit show, though. That would be amazing if he came out and said that.
But it's like, we all want KSCERATO to do well, because that's where all the criticism of Furia stemmed from back in the day. Was like, please stop doing this. You have a player who is incredible, who we want to see lift trophies, and you are actively ruining the peak of his career. Which, I don't know, might have been harsh, but that is the sentiment. It's like,
it's true though.
It's like, please, like, get this guy some people around him who can win trophies. Like, how has he never lifted? I think he's lifted one trophy in his career. I believe
they never won any. I don't think they've ever won a trophy.
I think there was one internet. I don't even think it was like a tier 1. I could be wrong, but
no, I'm almost certain no. But yeah,
it's just like. Yeah, he should be one of the guys going down as like one of the strongest riflers of his particular era. Probably not one of the greatest of all times, but of this era, this like 6-7 year stretch, he could be, going down as one of like the great forces of this era, and it's just not happening. So yeah, I think Fury at a whole, I think I've like had like, this is just like a culmination of, I think, a lot of long-term decisions that have gone awry. I don't think they have any good places to go at this point when this team is like obviously not performing and not improving, treading water in a bad place. You can't go within Brazil to get more people, especially not right before the major. I just don't think they had great options. I don't think they have a great path forward. So, this major could be everything for Fury in terms of determining what that next step is going to be. It could also be nothing. It could also be like, oh, okay, we tried this thing didn't work out, so let's just go back to what we were doing before.
I think that the only trophy he's lifted is, if I'm not mistaken, I just did a quick HLTV check, was the Elisa Masters Espoo 20.
There you go. It's going to be like
a tier 2 trophy.
Yeah.
Imagine that's KSCERATO's legacy.
No, nice
notes. The trophy that he lifted. Oh, that would make me so sad.
Especially because remember, like, look, to be fair, we even have to upgrade this take now. It doesn't even make sense anymore. You know when people like Kassad call blasts like banana cops? Like, I keep telling him now, but mate, now they took away the partner system of their BO5 finals. Like, they're not banana cops anymore now. They're like real. But we make fun of like Nico for having too many blasts. KSCERATO has a fucking Elisa Masters trophy, like, bro. That can't be the zenith of your career. Come on.
Elisa Masters in 3 events they won during COVID during the online era.
Fucking hell.
No ways.
I know, it's like, please.
And like I say, normally, by the way, the game can mask this. Normally, when you're in a team that's playing badly, your numbers go down, you look quite bad. This is one of the rare players where the eye test just checks out no matter what Fury's like. Like this guy, it's talking about the HLTV. You just watch this guy aim. He's just fucking super talented. Like everyone can see it. And the sad thing is as well, Moses, I actually do think, aside from the fact he won't lead this team, there's nothing negative. Like this guy's never trash talked anyone. Isn't he like one of the most universally liked Brazilian players ever? Like I think everyone pulls for KSCERATO, mate. We all do. We all want him to succeed.
I've never heard a bad story about him. Somehow, like I just nothing's come out. So yeah, okay, yeah. We don't get a chance to talk with him much because he stays within the team and everything. But I mean, every time we run into him or do content with him, he's super polite, super nice, really good for a laugh. Yeah, plays along with jokes. It's a good time.
I was just having a quick look here with Molodoy and his sort of experience, and I think that his first premiere. No, I'm going for
like 404 error. There's nothing on the internet about this guy.
I'm going to double down. No,
Go
I'm
on.
doubling down on the soft and squishy.
Go on.
I actually think that this may be one of his
Come on.
first big lands, debuting for
Okay.
FURIA, PGL Astana. How
Okay.
sick is that he gets to walk out there? That's
this is where we're different people,
hometown.
Sam. Because to you, it's a WB movie, and he's going to make it because he's tried so hard.
Yeah.
And his old Uncle Ben figure's like, now, son, remember what I taught you at PGL Starter? Whereas instead, Sam, what I'll tell you is the opposite. I'll tell you instead, it's like a fucking drill sergeant. It's like, when they drop you in that land, son, you're not even going to know what's hit you. There's going to be shells flying. Keep your head down and try and survive. Like, they're going to brutalize you at land, mate. If you've never been to a land ever, you go in there with FURIA, for fuck's sake. They're all going to, again, you're not going to be going, hey, YEKINDAR, what are they saying? He's going to go, and I'm not quite sure, but I think they're saying we're doing well. Corral ho, molodoy. Corral ho, the molodoy. Like, well, anyway, they dropped me up. Cool. What's that? Why is FalleN stood really near me when I'm up in the suicide area and just too, like, classic. Love it. Love it. Love it.
I think home country, home crowd. What a way to start. And I really actually do hope he doesn't shit the bed, because it will be pretty bleak.
It'd be really depressing if he does. Yeah, no, the first event in his home country. I'm trash at this game. Brilliant.
Yeah, this just kind of sucks.
I'm looking forward to the major anyway.
Oh no. I was so happy for a moment, and then Thorin just shat on all my dreams. So there we go.
Yep.
That's because, unfortunately, for real, I mean, by the way, this is where people have found out we're not just being harsh. Like, think about the fans of teams like Mongols and Aurora, aka Eternal Fire. I'm sorry, when you get to the big pressure moments in CS, it is like that scene from The Matrix. Almost everyone fails the first time. Like, unfortunately, like, you just can't be prepared for what a stage is like, when like a big match is like, when it's like to actually for real in the service, see like Nico's name in the top right corner, killing everyone. You can't prepare for that, unfortunately.
Even just your first land, like not even on a stage, is like a weird experience, because you realize like there's angles that work better than they do online, and there's angles that don't work as good as they do online, and some of like your decision making feels like it has to get tweaked. And and I mean, like if you don't settle down and get into the game, like the game could just pass by so fast, and it's like you're 8 rounds deep before you even realize it, and you're like, oh fuck, I don't remember anything that's fucking happened in this game. That transition. Although I'll say this generation of young players has actually done a really good job adapting to LAN, where like older generations struggled with it.
Oh, sure.
Which is weird, because I think the older generations had more LANs on the path up.
Right.
You know, if you think like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we had a lot more like LANs that you would like stop at in that progression to the tier 1, but still those tier 1 LANs always like hurt players, especially in like early CS:GO.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like the modern generation of players, with how much emphasis now is on like Face It, and how much pressure they probably put on themselves to gain that elo or get into the next level of Face It, to get invited into Rank S, I feel like they probably play with a lot of self-inflicted pressure to get to the point where they're recognized amongst like the professional individuals, that the pressure of LAN isn't as much of an obstacle anymore. That's my thought on it, at least, by the way.
I also presume if you're paying like a performance coach and a sports psychologist and all of that as an organization, their job is to make sure that your young players don't get the pressure of LAN too much, and like are equipped with the tools, I suppose, to handle it. I would imagine that's what you pay those people for.
Yeah, but I think we do a problem from the outside, which is like when we see an organization with like a mental coach or a sports psychologist, whatever you want to call it, we automatically think that they're having like impact, like just having them there. Because like the other side of that equation is the player has to be invested for that work to work. And I've met plenty of players to this day who think that that's like a bunch of like weird, like
think
voodoo
how many of them still have put their foot in their mouth, the on-6 style, and done the interview that they can't stop doing when they're in their first year of like, pressure, what's that? I'm probably never going to experience that. I'll probably just fuck around on the major. And you're like, bro, wait till you're there maybe before you say that. Like,
I know.
You know, better men than you have failed and later became the greatest players of all time, guys.
Yeah. And I mean, it's actually good in the scene that actually, to that point too, like some of the great players in our scene right now speak very highly of their performance coaches and mentor, whatever you want to call them, sports psychologists. Nico's obviously talked a lot about how good of work he's done with various ones of them. And but there are a lot of young players especially who feel like that's not for them, who feel like they can already handle the pressure, who feel like, some of them might dabble into it. Some of them may go through the motions, but not really all that convinced that it's something valuable to spend their time on. So, I mean, yeah, those pieces can help. It just also depends on the player, that it's applying to, and how much they're invested into it as well.
I like that you said that because I remember once on a Blast broadcast with Babsky, he said very publicly that it's a complete waste of time. All those sports psychologists and managers do is tell you to unpack the backpack and communicate with your teammates. And he didn't see the point. And that was it. He was like, they always say the same thing, unpack the backpack. Like, that's it.
The obvious joke being there. That's why you're on the desk, Bobski. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you should listen to some of that. They might have had a few good ideas. To the end, they just unpacked you from their roster and put you next to Sam on the desk. So there you go.
Fair point. Yeah. That was unfortunate. So when we take a look
and then
at
you
the
even
Furia roster,
even Katie outperformed you at that position, and he was role swapping.
Oh no,
he was pretty good that week. He was pretty good.
Yeah, he was pretty good that week.
Yeah, I'll give him props. I did it to shit on someone else, but that's my way.
Yeah. I will give Katie credit for that. I mean, they put him on every single Liquid game during that event after he had just been kicked by Liquid. Yeah. And then Liquid proceeded to play really well on their first outing and beat Na'Vi twice.
Love it.
Like, what a way.
I know, that's bullshit, isn't it? I know.
You know what?
Yeah.
No. When I stopped coaching Liquid, I came back, and the first event I did as talent out of that stint was like one of the last online ESL colognes, and ESL put me on every Liquid game.
Oh, of course.
They didn't do as well, though, so it was fun.
Yeah, no, he had to, that was rough. I was there. I had to watch it. It was rough. And it's very difficult when you have to literally be like, well, why do you, I mean, I couldn't ask the question, but I had to be like, well, why do you think they've improved? Clearly they did need a leadership change. You know, how do you say that to the person they fired? But there we go. I think I actually did at one point.
And also, he did open that segment by immediately flaming Bobsky and Pimp, like his fellow analysts. Like, he came out swinging. You know,
did he really? That's great.
Yeah, he did. I remember. Didn't he imply, like, you know, now they get some like entertainment with me or something like that?
He did.
Something like that.
He was a very
harsh,
good
but fair.
sport. Yeah, I don't know if he'll be the same now if we had to put him on an Astralis desk, but I challenge any tournament organizer to do it just for the.
No, I actually did find him quite entertaining. He was good. Yeah. True.
I think it would be a good time. Let's talk about the FURIA roster, though, just to wrap this all up. I mean, my take from both of you is it'll be fun to watch, but we don't really rate it'll do anything. Is that a good?
I think Moses said it better earlier. Like, essentially, I was kind of just out on FURIA. Like, I basically only watched them to watch KSCERATO at this point. And by the way, it's not, the joke is it's not even fun to hate on them anymore. There's not even an angle to hate on them. They're just not a very good team. So even though this roster, I don't think it'll do anything, it still has more like interest value than the last one. And like you said, Moses, just the potential this could, because I imagine by the YEKINDAR standing, that's not the long-term plan. Just the idea this is the slow pivot to something international, that's potentially interesting if you go a different route.
Yeah, it could be. Well, we just don't know. I mean, it could be fun to watch them try and transition into one with these pieces if they perform well. But yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, it's weird. I almost feel like this lineup has more of a chance to do, like, their ceiling could be higher at this major.
Okay.
There's like a world in which that's where the ceiling of this particular roster, but also I think the floor is much more likely to drop out too, right? It's like the extremes. Okay. Like the chance of you just bombing out versus or going deeper is both there.
Moses, you know what? I was told by a great man called Richard Lewis from Wales that you never on shores hold back the straight fire, no matter how offensive or shit it might be. So here is a patented, pure, could be 10 years ago from Counterpoint's level, shit Thorin dad joke, which goes like this. You know, when there was a rumor that I think it was Overdrive or something, but someone claimed that maybe FURIA would actually get Simple, almost like recreating that one from years ago where you could join. Right? Here's the thing in the end though, Sam. FURIA didn't get Simple, but they did get Simping. You know why they're Simping? Because they're like, Melody. That was a reference.
Oh my God.
That was so bad, but also good at the same time, Moses. That was classic banter.
Oh, he stuck the landing.
I did.
He brought it back.
I did the fedora reference to the 10 years ago. It's also a really dated joke. Like, nobody's even going to know what that reference is.
No, they
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
No, they're not.
Just end on
that. There we go.
You
can... Yeah, we are going to end on that. You can tell us what you think about the FURIA lineup in the comments. We'll see you soon.
Melody.